SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
On the big screen, and the nation's about to see us, in a different way, and it's going to give a ton of exposure to the area, and from a tourism perspective, I think it's going to completely change, Okmulgee in the future. I think people are going to be coming here, to visit the sites from the show, and just to see, hey, that's where they shot that part of that scene or whatever, and so I think long term, this is going to be huge for the nation, for Okmulgee, and the community in general.
Well, let's backtrack just a second now. For folks who don't know what Reservation Dogs is, maybe one of you could give us a quick capsule of what's going on there.
Yeah, it's a TV series that Sterling has developed with Taika Waititi. It's been picked up by FX and Hulu, and so they've been picked up for a full first season, and the season will begin on August 9th, and it's a 30-minute, I believe, TV show. I think it's more of a comedy, and it's a nationally, or I guess worldwide broadcast TV show that was shot mostly here, and represents the Native community here, and just from seeing the trailer, it looks pretty funny and interesting, and I can't wait to see the actual show in person.
I'm super excited to see how they've depicted the reservation, and
Absolutely.
how everybody's going to take it. They're going to be like, is that how it is there?
Oh, yeah.
I'm super excited. So people can get tickets, and you said there's plenty available, 18 and up. So how long will the event last? They're showing 2 episodes, you said?
Yes, there are 2 episodes. I'm just guessing from what typical TV shows, if it's a 30-minute show, after commercials, they're probably 23 minutes apiece. And so I would guess with, speaking plus the show, I would guess an hour and a half total. And
there will be opportunities to meet cast members.
I'm not certain about that. I know that we're hoping to have some cast from the show there. I don't know if there's meet and greet opportunities or what that would be. I don't want to set any expectations that could be wrong. Okay. But I do know that Sterling will be there to present the show and introduce it to the public that's there. And we're hoping to have some cast there as well. So everyone, we encourage you, if you're going to attend, we'll have a red carpet, so wear your best traditional wear or however you feel comfortable dressing up. If someone asked me if it's a black tie event, I would say no, but if you feel like dressing up, then go for it.
Well, I guess there are native versions of black tie.
That's right, yeah. So it would be
black choker or something.
It'd be great to see everyone there, and we'll have a backdrop for photos for anyone who wants to take pictures while they're there, and we'll have free popcorn for everyone who attends as well. So working with Spirit on that. So plus their concessions will be open. But big thing is 18 and up. So we don't want to make sure no one comes and brings little kids, because it is an 18 up audience.
So what's the CDC guidelines looking like for the event? Masks? No masks?
So we are encouraging anyone who is unvaccinated to wear a mask.
Okay. So I would like to touch on the festival a little bit, and that's your subject, right, Ryan?
Oh, yeah, I can help you with that.
Okay. So normally it's like in the last week of July, right?
Last week of June.
Last week of June, okay. And we're moving it to...
So this year, due to COVID, we pushed it back to the last weekend in September. So traditional festival weekend would be Thursday, September 23rd to Sunday, the 26th, with most events being on that Friday, Saturday, which is September 24th and 25th.
Okay. And so what is that kind of looking like?
It's a very different landscape moving a summer event that's in June to September. So infrastructure-wise, a lot of our events touch children. Children are out of school during the summertime. They're in school in September. Logistically, we really don't have a lot of events that are using the same structures that we are, but this event is actually the week before the Tulsa State Fair, whereas we're fighting with trying to set up, getting our tents having there, finding that all these logistical issues kind of pop up with regards to softball, for instance. We're one of the first festivals to have softball. And so our numbers are very, very high. Shifting that to September, our numbers will be lower because folks have played all summer long. You're tired, you're ready, you're going looking to football now. You're done with softball. So
Well, make the switch.
yeah, it's a very different landscape. So I know myself, the festival's always been near and dear to my heart. I set my calendar off the festival, and not having that in 2020 was very difficult. So I'm thankful that we do have something. We will be able to come together and celebrate another year of being Mvskoke and getting through this tough pandemic and enduring all this together as one people. But also, it's just letting us know how special this event is, and that we can endure this and then set our sights for 2022 when we can hopefully have a more normalized festival.
I was going to touch on that too. So, obviously we'd love to have it in June this year, but we just weren't comfortable because it takes so long to plan this event. So, we weren't comfortable early in the year to know what, COVID would look like. And even now it looks different than it did when we made the announcement for September. And so, but we're just grateful to be able to hopefully host one this year, and do it pretty normal as far as what the events we have are. We're obviously watching the Delta variant and the cases out there, and going to monitor that, and obviously up until the day, till leading up, modify guidelines if we need to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. Back when we initially announced in March that by June we'd make an announcement about this year's festival, and we did that, and so we're still planning for September, and hopefully this variant will potentially die down or pass by then, or at least we'll have some better sense of what it'll be as we get closer. I guess one of the positives, it'll be cooler weather instead of the a million degrees heat, or I know we had some tornado threats the past couple of actual festivals, and so you never know in Oklahoma, but hopefully we escape that. In
Right,
September.
I remember they kind of shuffled around the food wagons.
Yeah.
So what is the vendor situation looking like? Are you going to be able to have vendors there like normal, or?
Yes, we just opened up our vendors last Wednesday. We posted on our festival Facebook page, our festival website. We are taking applications for arts and crafts vendors, food vendors, info vendors to distribute literature. So that portion as of now looks very normalized. We're still moving forward with, entertainment and carnival rides because, as Kyle mentioned, it's kind of day by day. We're just going to make sure and plan for September as of today and see what goes on there. But this year itself, having it this close to October, in a typical year, October is when we start planning the festival. So October 1, the festival is funded just like everybody else. That's when we start. We start looking at entertainment. We start getting our tent contracts. We start reserving those restrooms, getting those golf carts. Those things go very, very quickly in summer, but it's a lot more difficult to get them in September because there's so many town festivals and celebrations.
Yeah, it's really interesting this year because everyone had the same idea as us to push back any events and festivals to the fall. So like Ryan said, there's tons of competition for vendors, entertainment acts, just everyone's attention and time, is because everyone kind of planned for the same thing. And so, but we still feel like we'll have a great, pretty normal festival as far as having all the typical events we normally have.
You were talking briefly about health precautions and things like that. Would the health department be out there distributing masks or vaccines? I mean, is that going to be available there? A part of it is it in your planning?
I'm not sure. I know that we've been working really closely with the health department, getting clearances. I know, for instance, with the carnival rides, is that something we could do? Until they gave us that thumbs up, we were not going to move forward. Having that concentration of folks, it could be a great place to give out vaccines. I know we'd be open to partnering with them if they wanted to do something like that. But it's kind of like looking at a magic 8 ball to see what September looks like. But I know we'd be very open to have that. The festival, I think, touches everybody. And since it's a community event, it would be a perfect place because we welcome everybody.
I remember those 8 balls where you shake them up and it says, "That's a good question." Well, I want a good answer. Yeah, come on. The other thing that was kind of poking around in the back of my mind is there have been some safety concerns regarding carnival rides, a couple of accidents here and there. Will the precautions be there? I mean, inspections and that sort of thing taking place?
Yes. So we always work really closely with our carnival company, which this year specifically, we're going to be utilizing a different carnival company than we have in the past. The festival is really good about being able to repeat the good parts and fix the bad parts. And so we've been very fortunate for the past few years to be with the same vendor. But since we shifted from June to September, we did have to change carnival company. So it's a whole new ball game. We have to start all those conversations. We just hammered out an agreement just within a week or two ago. So it's going to be a different dynamic of when they show up, of getting those certifications for safety, having them looked at, because we don't know each other. So it's going to be a little bit different, because we knew and worked with those folks for 5+ years. There's a difference. There's a camaraderie that comes in when you have the same vendors. You know each other, you trust each other, you know what each other needs.
Right.
So,
Well, while we're on that subject, with the rides being provided pretty much the same kind of stuff, Ferris wheels and
yes.
carousels and that kind of.
Yeah, we've actually this year pushed more towards carnival rides than inflatable. So we've always had a mixture. This year we're pushing more for carnival rides themselves. And then I believe we're still having the pony rides as well. But everything else will be a typical carnival ride setup.
Inflatables can be kind of, you're kind of mixing a lot of germs there with kids. That's how I feel about it. Like, when I'm at events with my kids, I'm like, don't get on that. Don't get on that one.
And then telling them to take off their shoes, and are some of them doing that? And so you have this pile of shoes everywhere. So our fun fair coordinator is in childcare, and so we worked with them. I said, okay, here's an issue we're having with these shoes. This is how we want to fix it. So we're very blessed with the festival that so many different departments help plan this event. And without those boots on the ground, without our volunteers, this would not happen. We have anywhere from 700 to 900 volunteers for each festival.
Wonderful.
So we are so thankful for everyone coming together, and it's everyone that's volunteering. The nation, Mvskoke Nation, is very unique in that aspect. A lot of other tribes have mandatory fun. So we are very thankful that every person working our festival is there by choice.
Well, I know that last year so many people were, and even the employees of the tribe were upset to see that we weren't having the festival, and everybody has been anticipating this year and having it.
Yep.
And so what was the feedback you guys got from the announcement? Was it good,
For 21?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, yes. Folks were just so excited because, I know even myself personally, you started seeing everything was just like move, cancel. And so I think a lot of folks were at that time, as Kyle mentioned before, when we announced we were going to say official dates in June, they were kind of expecting, we'll cancel and we'll just start up again. But I think a lot of folks in our social media as well was very positive, like, great, we will get that chance to come together. We can still come together and have that 2021 festival. Because myself, as a history buff, I try to keep pieces from the previous festivals. I would like to put together a display of festival history. That's something that if we don't hang on to, we'll never have. And so in my office, I have specifically like rodeo buckles from all these different years when we started doing rodeo buckles. And it goes all the way to 2020. And so I know for this year specifically, there will be no 2021. And that's only going to be one of the fun things about the cases is we were able to reuse our buckles from 2020 and shift that to 1 year, because buckles take months to produce. And we already had them on order because we start rodeo planning in January. So even with that, having that piece, we're going to already show that there's 1 year where there's that missing piece. So I know long term, we're going to remember that 2020 was a whole.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I feel like we had really good support. Just the response last year to the cancellation, everyone was very understanding and supportive of the decision, knowing we're just looking at everyone's best interests. And this year, to bring it back, like Ryan said, it was total optimism and support to us. And so we're happy to see that and excited to be able to bring everyone together for hopefully a somewhat normal feeling event this year.
Working in media, people are always like, what's going on? When's it happening? Like always asking me the questions, and I've probably been on Kyle's bumper, and he's probably just glad to get this out, and maybe and so I'm going to touch on a subject, live entertainment or any entertainment. What's that look like?
So we are still procuring entertainment. We are in negotiations, which, like I mentioned before, in a typical year, festival planning starts in October for June. The event that we start October 1 of each fiscal year is festival entertainment, because it's a very lengthy process to find that entertainment, agree on terms, go through those contracts, go through those riders, and come to terms with everything. So typically that stuff takes it about at least 2 months from beginning to end. So it's just kind of imagining going to Walmart and saying, oh, I want this, and then they go, oh, we're out of stock. And then you go to the next one. Every time that you get told that something's wrong or you can't come to terms, you start over from scratch. So we are still in the process. As soon as we can announce, we are happy to announce, but right now it's just still ongoing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I understand that, and most of the entertainers, they can afford not to work, so
Yeah.
it's like they don't have to come.
That's one thing too that I think people sometimes think that we're holding back entertainment announcements from the public, and we never do. As soon as they're official, we announce them. But sometimes it just takes a very long time, and we'll be pretty far down the road with the entertainer, and for some reason there'll be a term that we can't agree upon, or they'll back out, and we have to start, like Ryan said, we have to start all over, and then approach a new artist, or say who's available now, and approach a new artist, and then start that process. And between our legal team and their legal team, those are long discussions that happen, and sometimes it takes us going to council to get approval on agreements, and so we promise we want everyone to know the entertainment as soon as we know and can
Right.
say it, but it just takes a while. And this year, since the decision was not made until June, we have a very short window to plan for festival, and honestly, it may be very close until festival time before we know and can announce the full lineup, but I promise everyone we'll announce it as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a kind of a weird question here. I've read several pieces about booking shows and things like that. Some of the performers have these demands. They want, riders. Was it the band that wanted a bowl of M&Ms with all the chocolate taken out? Or, somebody wanted an entirely white dressing room, a new toilet or whatever. Have you guys run into anything like that? I remember...
Those Madonnas.
Yeah, I remember one of them wanted
Without
to...
mentioning names, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bus right up to the stage door.
Yeah.
I said, nah, it ain't happening over there.
Yeah, there's some harder riders than others, and sometimes they even put some tricks in there just to mess with you. I had one artist that put in funny picture frames. It was like, oh, put a picture frame of this person, this size, and it actually had jokes inside their contract. And of course, we're like, we know you're joking, but we still are going to strike this because we're not going to do that. But yeah, sometimes it can get very difficult, and so I try to look at it on their perspective. So I think, okay, for me, every day I'm living in this bus and I'm going around, and you're basically at the will of whoever is setting this up for you. If they don't have your ice cream or they don't have your milk, you're totally relying on a person. So just imagine sending someone a grocery list every week and never going to Walmart. So sometimes I can see their viewpoints on oh, we need these things and it's very special to them. And other times I'm like, oh, this is a little much. So we do go through pretty quickly on their riders. We never provide anything such as alcohol because it is against tribal law. So we always let them know this is a very family-friendly show. But we've had some folks that were very easygoing. We've had some folks that were a little bit more difficult. But honestly, since I've been in entertainment, which is I think now 6 years, everyone has been very, very happy. Everyone's behind stage joking and laughing. There's camaraderie. Sometimes we play jokes on it. I know I one year had an artist that wanted this giant thing of peanut butter from Sam's. We had to go to Sam's for peanut butter, and she already had one. So she's like, who wants my peanut butter? So I ended up with her peanut butter. I was like, yes, I will take your peanut butter home. Because she's like, I don't want this to go to waste. So sometimes it's literally they just need groceries.
That was lunch for a year.
I know, right? Well, I like peanut butter, so maybe 6 months.
Any of you ever get to try fry bread or softki?
No, we've had some folks that have wanted to partake more being at the tribe and try traditional foods and stuff. It's usually just their schedule because everyone comes around the festival to see entertainment in the evening, but usually they're very early in the morning. Sometimes I've met entertainment at 3 in the morning. Wow. They'll come in, and so they have to do their sound checks and go through everything. But no, we've been very, very fortunate with our headliners and our openers. That
one thing too that's different about this year is some acts don't want to perform in 2021. They're still hesitant to perform. and they want to wait and see. And so, a lot of them took last year off, obviously, and then are taking this year off as well. And so that also kind of throws the wrench in some of the bookings we're trying to do. But we're getting there, and hopefully, sometime in the near future we can, have an announcement.
Have you guys considered like a local artist possibly?
We've actually had local artists in the past. A lot of folks will notice that when we did do local artists, it was a separate stage. And so one thing that is kind of difficult when we do national acts and national entertainment is when they are performing on that stage, they basically see that their brand is there. And so because of that, they sometimes have rights of approval. So they can actually say who can perform in front of them. So you just see yourself as attachment. So when you usually talk to an entertainer, even a local band, they say, oh, I've performed for these folks. So they're basically taking the credibility of those artists. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that hinders us with local artists, because if the national act doesn't approve, then it puts us in, kind of a gray area where we can't say no. Mm-hmm. So it always goes back to contracts. And even with our entertainment contracts, they're usually open-ended. So I've actually booked someone for entertainment for festival, super excited on a Friday, and on Monday they canceled on me. Oh. And so usually 30 days before the event, they can pull out for any reason. That artist got a TV show.
Sounds like Mvskoke radio.
Yeah. Even the last festival we had in 2019, we did have a local act that was an opener. So even the most recent festival, we've had local performers. So.
Oh, okay, so that is a possibility if necessary or something. Yeah. So what does that weekend look like for your department and for you guys personally? Is it exhausting? Is it fun? Is it on the go? Do you sleep at all?
I would say it's exhausting and fun. Yeah. So I always say on Sunday that I feel like I got hit by a train, but it's a fun train. Yeah. So it's a train I set my calendar to. But yeah, normally from that Thursday on, I try to stay within a mile. So I'm on site because entertainment, other events, we've had water lines break before, we've had electricity problems, we've had, if it can happen, it will happen. And so we like to be on site and nearby, so that way if it does happen, we can get it going without hopefully anyone noticing. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, it's exhausting, but like I said, I love doing this. I wouldn't tell Chief, but I would probably do it for free. So just keep that as a secret.
You didn't hear that. Let me ask you this question about security, which has become more of a thing here in the last couple of years, actually. There hasn't been any major, huge breakups or brawls at the festival, although we know there have been some.
Yes.
It seems like people are getting a little crazier these days, and not just fist fights, but weapons and things like that showing up, or somebody trying to take over a meeting, which is near and dear to my heart, right? After a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
So I know what hand-to-hand combat's is like when you're trying to do that. But will Light Horse and perhaps Okmulgee Police be there to kind of back you up if you need it?
Yes, so Light Horse, we're very, very thankful to have their support each and every year. Since I want to say about Festival 14, we actually reach out to other law enforcement agencies. Mm-hmm. They have in the past came out, but we actually staff more. So the festival actually hires additional police officers to be on site. So the way we like to have it as, we want to have our police force and those folks that we do bring on for festival walking through the crowds, have their, four-wheelers, be basically so a part of the festival that everyone feels safe, everyone sees the safety, but also that there's a police officer right around. So we've been very fortunate not to have incidences, but I know one of the last time that there was a small incident, just someone raised their voice and that made people kind of get a little concerned. We actually had it on camera, and it was less than a minute that a police officer was literally at that spot, and someone just had a temper for a moment. We're all human beings, but there was a police officer right there ready for that. So we try to prepare for that, and it makes everyone feel more relaxed as well, because you do see our police force and the festival force just being there. So
okay, a related question, I guess, it would be parking. Which is people always,
yes,
never happy with parking or whatever. Have you made any special arrangements that people should know about?
No, I would say we're going to do what we've done in the past, but now we have the safe space at the Omniplex. So that actually takes away a little bit of parking. But we have cleared the backfield back there. I know it kind of gets conditional on rain. But I know at some years we have folks that's parking everywhere in front of the Omniplex, and then we'll have that big back parking lot behind the Mvskoke Dome and behind our complex, softball complex, that's empty because folks' line of sight, when you see cars parking out there, you just assume it's empty. So yeah, parking is always kind of up in the air. We get parking attendants and try to push it through, but I know sometimes folks just park where they want to park, and it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
But I always advise our visitors, I'm like, hey, go on site, park in that back parking lot, or park at housing, park at the main complex. Transit does an amazing job at offering free shuttles from going place to place. I know that if I was attending the festival, I would be parking at housing, dropping my car off, taking that free shuttle. Then I can be dropped off in the center of all the activities. When I'm done, jump right back on another shuttle bus, tell them exactly where I am, they drop you off. So
it's about every 15 minutes or something like that.
And they're consistently going.
Okay. Well, if someone still had questions, which I'm sure they will, how do they get in touch with you for more information?
They can reach out to our department. We're the Marketing and Tourism Department. They can reach out directly to me, Brian Logan, at 918-732-7992. But I can also visit our festival site, which all of our websites are going to be undergoing some changes. But it's redirecting right now at creekfestival.com. And also, again, like I said, our rodeo is going to be this weekend starting at 6 p.m. on Saturday, July 31st.
Okay.
And the Facebook page is probably the most up-to-date information as well. It's usually updated, the second something happens. And so that's where we'll make the entertainment announcement and any other major announcements too. So just Mvskoke Nation Festival on Facebook. Just search that to find the page.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming in today. All this information was really good, and I hope that, we can get some events looking somewhat normal. Maybe just, we can have a good time. And so you guys have a good day, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a short pause here and be right back with the second segment of Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew. Sitting in with us now is Jared Moore from our, do you still call it Mvskoke Vision? Or?
Well, the Mvskoke Vision title was for the TV show program, but we're still doing our YouTube channel, and also everything that I do is going to goes in the paper too, under whoever wants to do the write-up. So, but I'm still here.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, I noticed that people have asked about it. Say, hey, what happened to the TV show? Okay, but in the coverage that you provide, it's pretty well varied in subject matter, and you've got a really serious one at this point. So why don't you give us a kind of a feel for what you're focusing on?
Well, I just wanted to come in, and I don't know if you had on your program an update for the citizens on the impeachment process for Representative Scott. So, and if citizens, this is the first you're hearing about it, you can go to our website right now and see a post that will give basically the same information that I'm going to give here and maybe a little bit more. It's going to be detailed. Or you can go to our YouTube channel and look at the updates we've been posting as this been happening. So we've been covering it with video updates as these things have happened. But basically, I'm just going to, and if you have any questions, Gary, as I go through, go ahead.
Let's start with this one now. We all of a sudden saw this notice just sort of explode and from the council that, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? Why is he being impeached? What's the problem?
They were having, fact-finding meetings over and over again and investigation meetings, and we're like, what's going on?
Right.
And then they released the statement.
Right. So at this point, do we really know why this is happening?
Well, at this point, where we're at with the process is, and for citizens, the process was basically kicked off at a May 22nd emergency session that was also an executive session. So we didn't find out about it until afterwards. On the May 24th, the National Council issued a press release that announced the penalties against Representative Scott. And it's important to note for the audience that these are the internal council's penalties. So there is a letter of reprimand from the Speaker, a public censure by the National Council, a monetary fine of $50,000, cessation of National Council compensation and the health insurance associated with that, and expulsion from all National Council meetings and duties. I believe they also asked for his resignation. So when that press release came on the National Council's website, that's when we started doing our inquiries to try to find out what happened, just like everybody else. And our process typically on that is that we will contact whoever is the person to contact, in this case Speaker Hicks, and send them an email and say, hey, we have some questions about this, would you like to talk to us, and see if we can get those questions answered. And if we can't, we've been trying to, in all those instances, file a Freedom of Information Act request to see if we can get an official denial and what that pertains to. I will tell the audience that in this instance, we did contact Speaker Hicks. He said he would try to answer questions if he could in the email. So we sent him emailed the questions. We didn't get them answered. So we did a FOIA, and our FOIA was denied on basically two grounds. The first grounds was that some of the information was conducted in an executive session that was not for public release. And then the other grounds was that there is a law enforcement proceeding, that some of this information is part of a law enforcement proceeding, okay? So the idea with that being that if the AG's office is going to file charges on somebody or have a case in court, they don't want all of that stuff to come out before they've actually presented it in court, if that makes sense.
Right. It's just like when you hear, say, Tulsa County or City of Tulsa or the state, we can't comment during our investigation.
Right, same deal.
Same deal.
So following that, we contacted the AG's office to see if there was any statement that he could give on that, and he said basically the boilerplate that you always get, which is we can't comment on whether we have any investigations going, etc. And that's, if there is an investigation going from this, then we wouldn't expect to see anything throughout this process, right, as far as from FOIA requests or those types of things. After that, the next step in the process was the council passed the public censure, I believe. And that public censure mentioned that what they were saying that Representative Scott did, the National Council was saying that he violated Title 31 1-104. Basically, there's a section in the MCN code that delineates that public officials can't have business contracts with the nation. It's a conflict of interest, right? So, and then they named two businesses in there, Scott's Native Products, I believe, and Parks Ace Hardware is the two things that they mentioned. They didn't detail exactly what the contracts were or what happened there as far as those entities' dealings with the nation. So when we got that public censure that went through the council, then we followed up with another round of questions and everything for all of the entities. And then we also have contacted Chief's office to ask him, like these two businesses in particular, what has the tribe contracted with them on, like what money changed hands, etc., to try to find out whatever we can about what Representative Scott's being accused of. We haven't gotten those questions answered. We've also filed a FOIA on that. But again, if there is some type of investigation or anything like that going on, we're probably going to see a denial on that FOIA along those lines, the same thing. So I'm not too expectant for that particular FOIA either to get an explanation of it. When will we find out maybe what anybody is thinking out there? So I just want to talk about the process a little bit at the Creek Nation, the impeachment process that we're trying to follow. And in the process of talking about that, we'll find out when we should definitely find out. So the first step, and there's different ways that the impeachment process can be initiated. Citizens can initiate it with a petition, et cetera, but the National Council can also initiate impeachment on their own. And you can find this in Title 31, subsection 1-105, and it's the principles of procedure for impeachment. And also out there, that's on the MCN code. If you go to the Creek Supreme Court's website, that's where you can find this, what I'm gonna talk about. So the first thing they do, the National Council can initiate impeachment by having a majority vote authorizing a National Council directive instructing a special prosecutor chosen by the National Council to convene a special impeachment committee consisting of 7 members of the National Council selected at random. So basically, the special prosecutor would then, after that directive, conduct an investigation and present a report to this committee of councilmen. And that committee will look at the evidence presented in that report, and they'll vote on the charges that they're going to present, right? I'm just going to look real quick and see. So those charges would be, after that, would be codified into the formal written statements as the articles of impeachment, right? Then the next step would be a court of impeachment with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presiding in the case of a trial of the principal chief or a lesser Supreme Court judge if a lesser officer. So the long and the short of it is they're going to hire a special prosecutor. He's going to conduct his investigation, or you would assume if there has already been a law enforcement investigation into this matter, he's going to get that investigation material together. He's going to look at it and see what he thinks the charges should be. Then he's going to present that to this impeachment committee. The impeachment committee is going to vote on it, and then the articles of, if they vote to continue the process that there are charges here, then those charges will be codified and presented as the formal charges. And
before we get too far away now, the hiring of this attorney is also a point of contention, would you say, or people are questioning it? There's some controversy, perhaps.
Well, you can go and this for the audience, you can go and watch. The National Council has a YouTube channel where they're posting their meetings. And you can, if you want to go back through these various meetings where the special prosecutor is on the agenda for these emergency meetings, the engagement of the special prosecutor, and you can hear some of the discussion. I don't know if there would be contention. They're just, they're trying to find the right person. Okay. According to the discussions that they have had in these videos, they're having a hard time finding somebody who's on the Mvskoke Creek Nation Bar Association list that's willing to be the special prosecutor, right? They have a particular person that they have voted to hire. That doesn't mean that that person has been hired, though. They just voted to hire, and his name is Jeff Davis. He's on the MCN bar. He is a member of a group, I think it's Barnes and Thornburg, out of Michigan. And so they haven't confirmed that they have hired him or anything like that. In fact, there was an emergency session yesterday. I think it was an emergency session, where they were going to discuss, because the firm Barnes and Thornburg represents individuals on the opposite side of a lawsuit that the nation's involved with, that Purdue Pharma lawsuit. Barnes and Thornburg apparently represents somebody on the other side of that against the nation, so the nation has to obtain a letter of consent to hire Jeff Davis, because he's a member of that firm, to come and work as the special prosecutor. In other words, and the letter of consent is an ethical thing that the law firm in particular, has to have to say that, yes, this client knows that our firm is representing, is on the other side of a lawsuit. We're representing somebody suing them in another matter, and so that absolves them of any ethical problems, right? But I
presume it clears up a bit of confusion there.
Well, the only problem with that letter of consent, and we don't know, we'll have to watch and see how that plays out, is that, and this is just my understanding, the letter of consent will have to be signed off on by chief, right? So the National Council can hire the special prosecutor as long as you don't have any of these type of legal problems, like where his firm is representing somebody else. So if they could find somebody to just hire, they could hire him, right, for whatever they wanted to pay him, and that would be an issue. So, but if they have to get a letter of consent for the nation to sign off on this legal situation, right, that stuff would, my understanding is, it has to go through chief too. So you have a situation where, because this particular person they want to hire has to have this letter of consent, like the chief is, there's a layer here that they'll have to go through that they might probably not normally have to go through. I would say to the audience, to my knowledge, this is the first impeachment that's ever been done at the nation. I could be wrong about that, but definitely in recent memory. So everybody's kind of going to be feeling this process out as to how it works and what happens during it. But as far as contention, I don't think that there will be any contention. I just think it's a situation where they for them to continue in this process, they've got to get a special prosecutor engaged, and then they can move on to the selection of the committee and all of the next steps. Where I was talking about the information from an investigation getting out, though, after this gets out of that special committee process and it goes to the impeachment court on the floor of the council, that's when all the information will come out. So that's when both sides are going to have a chance to say, cross-examine each other and present any evidence they have of what they're accusing Representative Scott of, or vice versa, right? So if there is an investigation ongoing, you would expect that information to come out at that time, or possibly earlier. The special prosecutor should present a report to the committee. And it would be good if that report was a public report, because, he's working for the citizens on the citizens' dime, and that's something that, if he found evidence of a councilman doing a crime or something, you expect that would be something that the citizens should see in addition to the committee, but we'll have to see what the council is going to release on that front. But definitely at the court of impeachment, we should see it, right?
Any feel for when that might be available?
That's the hang up, is the special prosecutor situation. They've got to iron that out first, get somebody hired, and then he's probably going to conduct some amount of his own investigation, you would assume, and then present it to the committee, his report to the committee, and so on. So who knows? It's an election year, so that's going to be the major thing about this, is, are they going to try to finish it before the election is over, and so on and so forth. I should also mention, too, that Representative Scott has filed in the district court trying to get the court to issue orders to block the council from doing these things. So he's trying to get the court to order them to reinstate his pay and his health insurance, and reinstate and eliminate his fine, and block the council from interfering with his duties as a councilman. And he's doing that and his lawyer, this is also an interesting feature, his lawyer is former MCN Judge Jeremy Pittman. And he's doing that under, if you look at the court filings, and again, everybody, there's more in-depth coverage of this on their YouTube channel, and also it's going to be in the paper and on our website right now. So if you're hearing this and you're like, you want to know more about a specific thing, it's all there to check it out. But he's making that case saying that his due process rights, his constitutional due process rights have been violated, right? So he's basically saying, I haven't had the chance to defend myself. I haven't had a chance to a lawyer and those type of things, just like if you were in a court proceeding. We'll see how that plays out in the court. I believe there's a hearing on it on Friday. Now, recently, due to the uptick in the Delta strain of the COVID virus, the MCN District Court just announced that they're closing all the public proceedings, so they're going back on like basically a lockdown situation where they're still going to hear cases and all of that, but it's not going to be open to the public to go in. So that's going to slow down our coverage a little bit because we're going to have to call over there and figure out, what happened in any case that he has. I'm assuming that they're going to publish it to a docket, and that will be our starting point for that.
With this legal maneuvering going on, which is understandable, has Mr. Scott made any statement regarding the charges against him, or kind of clear up, or is it still in the legal?
He hasn't made an official statement to us, or to my knowledge, any news agency about this. I think, though, what he's basically, if you look at the court filings, what he's basically saying is he really doesn't understand what he's being charged with, right? Like, he hasn't been formally told. And if you look at the timeline that's published with our other coverage, so the thing that kicked off the entire process was in this May 22nd emergency session, they made the motion to begin this proceeding, right? That was right before a council meeting, if I remember correctly, and a regular council meeting. And so that, from his perspective, he's saying that's the first I found out about this is when they made this motion and they voted on it, and then they threw me out. So, but that, again, that's not his official statement. That's just what I'm trying to infer from his court filings, is that that's the due process part where he doesn't really know what he's being accused of, and we haven't seen. We were talking about investigations, right? We also haven't seen formal charges brought by the AG's office against him in court. So if you would assume that if they had evidence of a crime, right, and they were ready to prosecute, why wouldn't they just go ahead and go prosecute? You know what I mean? Like, so you could look at it from both sides and say, is there evidence of him doing something? And if there is, why aren't they going ahead with the legal process? And then all of the impeachment things that we're seeing right now, everybody would understand. Like everybody would say, oh, well, obviously he's being charged with a crime, Well,
I have a question. Would violating a code be the same thing as committing an actual crime?
It depends on what evidence the prosecutor's office has and what they're going to charge him with. The things that have happened so far to Representative Scott are internal council rules and procedures, right? So the Constitution says that the council can set up its own rules and procedures about how it wants to deal with behavior of its own members that it doesn't like, right? And they have their own rule book, and they can change their rule book whenever they want. So all of the letter of reprimand, the monetary fine, the loss of his pay, his health insurance, the censure, the expulsion from meetings, that's all happening on internal council rules, right? And if you could charge him on that conflict of interest section that the council mentions in their letter of censure, it's not in the criminal code, so I don't know. Is the short answer to that. I will say that conflict of interest passage that's in there. In fact, I got it highlighted. I want to go through it a little bit because there is an interesting section in there.
Yeah, if you can give us sort of the capsule version as we're getting to the end of the program.
So Title 31, 1-104, Number 9, Conflict of Business Interest. An officer of the Mvskoke Creek Nation shall not engage in any business of whatever nature directly or indirectly with the Mvskoke Creek Nation, nor shall an officer solicit, participate, profit, benefit, or conspire to gain advantage over others, except that business transactions may be allowed which are nominal in nature, and the government transacts business in the same nature as does the general public, freely and openly. So there, that last part is the interesting part.
Right.
Except that business transactions may be allowed which are nominal in nature, and the government transacts business in the same nature as does the general public, openly and freely.
To me, that kind of contradicts everything it said before it.
Well, that it's kind of like a loophole, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard, if you go and watch the council meetings that they've posted to their YouTube channel, they've had discussion about this and mentioned that the AG came in and advised them that whatever this happened it was not nominal in nature, right?
Right, they wouldn't be going through all of this if it wasn't something big and nasty, so to speak.
But as far as to wrap up, before we wrap up, as far as what we do know, we don't know what has been done, right? We know that it's it's something in this conflict of business interest, and we know that Representative Scott is challenging it in court. We have a FOIA currently with the executive branch trying to get any records that are associated with contracts with the businesses mentioned in Representative Scott's censure. We'll wait and see what response we get from there. If we get a response that says there's an ongoing investigation, the next step for us will really be to see if the impeachment process gets to that court of impeachment where everything should come out. If we get to the court of impeachment and we don't see what he's done, there's further steps that we can take as far as the investigation to find out, and we'll go from there. But they should make their case there. That should be where they come out and say, this is what we think he did, or what the AG has found, or whatever.
Right, and this is one we'll keep our eye on, and we'll have someone covering the rest of the story. Well, let me throw in some announcements real quick, and we'll get out of here. Tomorrow, the 29th, the last of the Council House lawn activities is happening. It's finger weaving with Sandy Wilson, my cousin, and she'll be available there from 9:30 till noon.
All right, everybody, don't forget this weekend's events, the rodeo and the reservation dog screening. Also, on August 18th, the Mvskoke Nation is having a hiring event for over 200 career opportunities at River Spirit Casino Resort. Starts at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for veterans and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. for everyone else. Bring an updated resume.
Okay, finally, as Jared mentioned, the District Court of the Mvskoke Nation has consulted with the Health Department over the rise in the COVID-19 variants. So the end result is the Health Department has recommended the nation stop all large in-person meetings, which means the courtroom, judges' chambers, and library are closed to the public effective immediately. Oh my, gee, we just can't get rid of that darn thing. Well, listen, Jared, thank you so much.
Sure.
We're going to be leaning on you continually in the future to cover this case and others that we find going to be newsworthy or useful or fun to the public. And, of course, we'll want Morgan to join in with us, too. All right. Well, this is Gary Fife, Jeho Jivkados, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedgetowitskis, and Mado Mabo Hedgetskut.
Mado.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But